So, welcome back to How to Build a Stronger Reader Today mini course. I am Chauntelle Modeste, and I am a former elementary classroom teacher and reading specialist, turned private tutoring business owner, and I've recently launched my Ivy Leagueish Reading Academy. So, welcome back. I hope that you've learned a lot of great tips and strategies and ideas that you can share with your child if you've been with me from the beginning of this course. So today I wanted to ask you a quick question. Who out there has a fake reader? And you might ask, what is a fake reader? You know, one of those readers who say they've read their book and you ask them a question about it and they don't know anything about it. A fake reader. Because even when I was in the classroom and I was a literacy coach, I would go in and work with teachers and help train them on all the ways of reading. And they would, promise and swear my students are reading. Then I would go over and kind of see they would be on the ground or in a comfortable space in the classroom reading. And they weren't really reading. So one thing that I suggested to them and one thing that I will suggest to you is to try this tip, which is tip number 4, how to annotate. And you might ask, what does it mean to annotate? If you listen at the word, I believe in a previous session that we did, I talked about, word parts and prefix and suffixes. Well, in the middle of the word annotate is the word note. So annotate just simply means your child is taking notes while they are reading. And so if they had taken notes and, drew pictures, because sometimes the younger students, I would have them draw pictures. My first and second graders are not, they're not big writers. But if they're taking notes or drawing pictures or doing something that's proof for you as a mom and a dad and a parent and teachers also, proof that they've read what you've, told them to read. So that's one way of preventing students who might try to engage in fake reading, because there's evidence that they've read. They wrote notes. They wrote things about what happened in the story. So let's look at a little bit more about how to annotate. So like I said, annotate just means to take notes. And one of the great things about annotation for students, it helps them stay engaged in their reading. Because reading can sometimes get boring. Your eyes get heavy. You're tired, especially if you're reading late at night. You get distracted. You want to just jump and, turn the TV on to do something else because you're just sitting still. You have to sit still. Reading is a long-term game. Talk about the word stamina. Does your child have the stamina to withstand a long reading? Can they read X amount of pages within so many minutes? So it's a stamina game. And so taking notes just kind of helps them get to the end goal. They have 30 pages to read and they've taken notes. They're alert. They're engaged. They're aware of what's going on because they're just simply writing down something that they've learned. So annotation looks a little different. There's different ways to annotate. You can annotate if it's your own child's book. You can use a highlighter. And I love this. There's an important part or something that they feel, and this is something that would take training, because otherwise I've seen my students, they would annotate and their page would just be full of yellow. If it's full of yellow or whatever the color highlighter are using, they didn't get the important parts of that reading that they were assigned, because you can't color everything. At that point, then what's important? So you would have to train your child on how to actually find important things in the story or the book, if it's theirs, to highlight. So highlight is one way to annotate. You can also underline. You get to an important part of the story or something that you think or feel is important that you might need to know for later questioning at the end of the story or book. And this is for academic text. This is for regular, fiction text, for any type of book. Could be their social studies textbook from school, their science book. It's really great for nonfiction like science and those academic subjects, social and science and history. Really good to annotate because it's kind of hard to get through. Those kind of readings are a little bit more difficult. More words, more information, kind of overload mode. So highlight, underline. Your child can also circle key vocabulary words, or it could be some bolded, bold-faced words within the text that they're reading, or the passage could be a sheet, just a passage, sheet of paper. So underline, highlight, circle. Your child could draw a star by something important, an asterisk, even a question mark. They may get to a point. I used to teach my second graders, that's to train them how to, when they got to a point in a piece that they were reading, if it was something they wondered, I wonder about this, I'm not sure, or I don't know this word, or I don't know what the author is telling me, I would have them write a question mark next to that part that's confusing, and we'll discuss and talk about it later. So it's just a mental way to leave notes for later, because we want your child to get through whatever they're reading and then come back and kind of discuss those important parts and elements of that story. So highlighting, underlining, asterisks, starring, circling, all of these are great ways to annotate or just to take notes while reading. Keeps you alert. Another reason it's important to annotate, it's a great way for your child to really process what they're reading. It kind of slows them down. Instead of them rushing through, they have to slow down because they know they have to take notes on what they've read. And so that's another perk of and benefit of annotating and taking notes. Another great thing about annotation is that you can use those notes that you highlight, underline, circle. You can use that to help you build a summary. And I used to teach my students to write in the margins of their book or their reading passage the who and the what. Who is doing the conversating in this particular passage? Who is doing what's been talked about in this story? What are they doing? Okay, then if you get a little bit more advanced, you do the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the how. I mean, just quick notes, Sammy, jump the fence, I don't know. I'm just thinking of just something simple, so a few words. And it almost looks like your paper's bleeding information. And so a lot of times when you have to go to the end and answer questions, because most of the time if you're reading something, there's an end goal, you're going to write a response to it, answer questions. You now have you've now left a track of your thinking. You can just see the trail. Remember we talked about how there's no fake reading with this because you can see your child's thinking during this process. Now, if you have a book where your child can't actually write in, and like it's a book from the library or a textbook from school that they're not allowed to write in, use sticky notes. Sticky notes are my favorite. I have them in every color: purple, red, yellow, blue sticky notes. They're cheap. They can just take notes on here of what was going on. They can write. Also, I used to train my students to write, wow, if they come across some fact or some stunning information that they found really critical and interesting. So, wow, question marks, vocabulary words. They can take notes about the character. Just a few, just enough information to jog your memory for later. Okay? So I just wanted to talk to you today about the need and the benefits of taking notes. It's a mental exercise that keeps you awake. Because we all have it. I read sometimes, I'm just falling asleep and like, oh. And so I try not to read too late because that happens. But if your child is reading something for a school assignment and something for a grade and something they need to be able to regurgitate and to summarize and get critical points and information out of it, then annotation is a great tip for you. And it's something you can do as adults. I did a training early in the year about annotations, and the parents were saying, that's a great idea. I didn't think about that. I should be doing that. Exactly. That's what I love about these tips. They kind of span from grades K through age 99. You can apply this at the elementary level, the middle, high school, college, because I've taught my students at all levels how to annotate. So remember sticky notes. Remember the young children, they can draw if they're not able to write in detail. Older students write a little bit more extensive in the margins of what's happened in the story. It helps them with processing the story, helps them retain what was read, which goes back to comprehension, them understanding the story. So I hope you've gotten a little bit more information about the importance of tip number 4, how to annotate. And I hope this helps you and help your child become a stronger reader today. And these are also things that I also teach in my Ivy Leagueish reading program as well, how to annotate, because this is a skill that will follow them and help them throughout their career. It'll be great kind of thinking ahead, thinking about college exams, SATs. They can write on those, test papers if it's a physical paper for their exams, and use annotation. I know this is something that teachers train their students to do around test taking time, a time of the year to take tests, how to annotate their passage to be able to successfully answer the questions at the end. So it helps with test taking skills, it helps with college exams, it helps with just regular reading and remembering and processing what was read. So I love annotation, and I hope you can learn something from this and apply this and help your child annotate today. So thanks for hopping on. I am Chauntelle Modeste, and I will be back with you shortly for tip number 5.